We're going to make Kevin really, really happy today. I think I already made your week, Kevin, with tagging you in a LinkedIn post by Dr. Hannah Matthew out of London.
remember that.
Yeah,
I
I'm
remember
waiting for
that.
you to smile. We
More
always,
evidence. More
what
evidence
did you,
against statins.
it was, I know we're talking about walking is medicine, but this particular post from Dr. Hannah Matthew addresses what Kevin's been talking all along about the disruption in the muscles and the depletion of the muscles due to some statins. And she posted it, caused a debate on LinkedIn, but it's something that Kevin has been studying for a long time. I don't know if anyone knew, but he has a PhD in pathology, highly recognized over there in the UK. But I always have to say it is standard protocol. The evidence they had shows statins have benefit, but we can't ignore that there are some side effects that do mimic some of the issues that you could have with PAD. And we even have Marilyn, who's here in our live studio audience. Don't forget, if you want to join our live studio audience, info@padhelp.org. Also, if you're on our YouTube channel, don't forget to subscribe. Helps the algorithm for YouTube spread awareness for PAD and walking is the best medicine. Also, make sure you subscribe to Kevin's channel at Fit Old Dog. I have been sharing that like crazy because of the incredible exercises that people can do that truly do have an impact to improve circulation. But Kevin, with the statins, would you mind just sharing a little bit of what Dr. Hannah Matthew was talking about that aligns with what you've been saying all along, and that Marilyn and even Marina, who's here on a live studio audience, have expressed they've experienced that it might not be a circulation issue, that it might be a side effect from the atorvastatin.
Well, if I remember rightly, I mean, I was pretty fuzzy, but she was expanding on muscle damage, including in the heart. And that was pretty interesting. I think the real problem with statins, which inhibit HMG-CoA reductase, the first step in cholesterol biosynthesis, they also indirectly inhibit fatty acid synthase, and they somehow become a kind of cult. And now it's a $19 billion industry. My issues are due to triglycerides and LDL, which is a completely different circuit, but they still push statins at me, which did me no good. The best treatment for my situation has been exercise and fatty fish, and now there are some P.A.D treatments available, but it's not a cholesterol issue. And even in the hospital, when I was recovering from my bypass surgery, they start trying to hand me statins in the hospital. When, I got heart muscle trying to recover, I'm lying there in bed. And I think statins have a place for those with familial cholesterolemia. And even then, they should take alternatives if they can. And that article was yet another example of the damage by statins. They've also been shown to induce diabetes. And so I think you have to take great care with the medicines you take and why. But I do not understand why a person with high triglycerides would have statins pushed at them that I rejected. I don't get it. Someone told me her physician was giving statins to anybody with diabetes. Now, come on. I mean, it's a very strange phenomenon. It reminds me of
Well,
bloodletting. It's a strange thing.
and the point that we try to make here in bringing up everything that you're talking about is evidence-based, right? As well as the benefits of statins, evidence-based, but there are two sides to the coin. And we bring these issues up because we want patients, we want all of you, people, human beings. Patients are people are patients, but you're people first and foremost. We want you to not just accept what's coming at you. We want you to engage in your healthcare, engage, become a partner in your care. Ask the questions, have the conversations, find those doctors that will have the conversations with you. Nurse practitioners are great for doing that. A doctor may not have time, but nurse practitioners are trained to educate. They spend a lot of time learning how to educate, and they love having those conversations. So it's really important for you to talk about not only the benefits of a certain medicine, but also what are the complications? What are the side effects that you should be aware of? How can you mitigate those side effects? We have a pharmacist, Kevin, that we've had on a number of times who works with the VA in the San Francisco Bay Area. And I don't know if a lot of people know, but pharmacists, I'm not sure, Kevin, if all pharmacists, but I think a pharmacist is a doctor. They just don't go by doctor so and so.
They aren't an MD. They have a degree in the art of pharmacy.
PhD. Right, exactly. So not an MD, but it's really nice when I always want to call her Dr., and I don't want to just say her name right now. But she is a proponent of having the conversation with your doctor every 6 months about your medication, and to get blood tests on mineral deficiencies and nutrient deficiencies, vitamins and minerals and all that stuff, because so many of these medications can cause these deficiencies that lead to side effects. And so it's important for you to understand what deficiencies can come, and to make sure you stay on top of those if you choose to work with your doctor on taking medications, right, Kevin?
Yeah, I think the important thing to remember is every patient is different.
Yeah.
I was prescribed about 6 different or 7 different medications as I was coming around. One of which I took home, and that was Plavix. They want me to take Plavix and aspirin. Well, I took aspirin, that was great. And then I took Plavix because I don't want to get a thrombosis. Within 20 minutes taking the Plavix, I had a massive nosebleed. So that doesn't mean I should be taking Plavix. My anticoagulant level with the aspirin alone is obviously quite safe, and nosebleeds are not, because they can imply that you're going to bleed elsewhere. So I stopped taking the Plavix. Most people can take it and they don't have that. So you have to remember you're an individual. You have to assess what's going on. I really like the idea of talking to nurse practitioners, because they tend to be better at listening, and they know a great deal, and they have access to physicians for advice on individual issues. I was signed off at the hospital, I guess 2 weeks ago, by a nurse practitioner. And there's a couple of medications I wanted to stop, and she agreed in both cases.
Oh,
One
good.
was iron. Another was the one that inhibits cells in metaphase that we used to use for spreads a long time ago. I've had
Metotrolol?
no, it's an ancient medicine, ancient drug. It will come to me when I least need it, is the way things are. Anyway, so I terminated those 2. And also I had issues with beta blockers.
That's the one.
The beta blockers are extremely dangerous. If you see what they do, the side effects are quite extensive. They wanted me to be on a beta blocker free. I don't think I could handle that. I think it might kill me. Anyway, I was on a low dose of that, but I developed, as I came out of the hospital, a very, very severe yeast infection in my mouth. I had growth of yeast on the sides of my mouth, splitting from my tongue inside my mouth. And so I tried various anti-yeast because of the antibiotics I was on. I was on some pretty powerful antibiotics. So I developed septicemia post-surgically, which put me in the hospital for another week. So here I am, home. I can hardly eat. I can hardly talk because of the yeast infection in my mouth. Even nystatin failed to get rid of it. And I'm lying in bed about 3 or 4 days, I guess a week ago now. And I'm thinking, well, what about natural immunity? And what I'd noticed was the beta blocker prevented me from producing saliva. And that's a known effect. It does lots of horrible things, but that's one of them. And so I thought, what about natural immunity? And I'm getting no saliva. My mouth is dry as a bone. And it's one of the side effects of beta blockers. So
Oh, I didn't know that.
there are three chemicals in saliva that are naturally protect us from yeast, and they're very effective. So I stopped taking the beta blocker, encouraged salivation, which took a little while. And once the salivation started, I encouraged that, and the yeast infection faded away over a period of about 4 days. And it was going nowhere. It was going nowhere with nystatin, which is a really powerful chemical. And so you have to consider each chemical and what it does. And these drugs are chemicals, and you are an individual. You are not, you're not a statistic, and you have to work with each one. And so just, it's up to you what you put in your mouth. I mean, they keep wanting to they keep wanting to give me Repatha. I mean, the hospital keeps sending me things about a prescription for Repatha. That's for inhibiting cholesterol biosynthesis, and it's $500 a month. And I don't have a cholesterol problem. I have a triglyceride problem. So somehow things get caught up in the system as part of the protocol. And you can get trapped in that protocol if you're not careful. So you decide, you're your doctor. I'm fortunate to have medical training, which really helps. If I were you, I'd talk to a nurse practitioner before I would talk to a physician. They are much easier to communicate with. So that's my experience.
Kevin, what's your take on Repatha? Like you say statins are toxic. What's your take on Repatha? And is there a statin that doesn't have so much side effect with muscles? And third question is, where do you find the article that you're talking about that doctor wrote about statins?
So she is on LinkedIn, Dr. Hannah, Hannah Matthew. It's interesting being in the UK, internal medicine doctor, and to be putting something out there from the UK, being in the UK on that. But she has actually, this is great. And I don't know, Kevin, I'm happy to have her actually during this hour if you want. I was going to have her for the UK hour that we have. We have a hangout at later, but she is willing. She says, I mean, she wrote me 3 different messages with such excitement to say she would love to run a presentation on it. She would love to share her research, her opinions, and how to navigate as well the NHS. And she also said she could provide some tips to empower patients to ask questions to the doctor about all of this. So I'm happy to schedule during this hour, or we can schedule during our regular UK hangout.
Yeah, no, that would be a great idea. And by the way, Marilyn, the hospital asked me about statins, and I told them that statins didn't do me any good, and they caused muscle pain. Well, the physician standing there heard me talk about statins causing muscle pain and suggested Repatha. I replied that I don't need Repatha as I don't have a cholesterol problem. I have a triglyceride problem. But I think that went in one ear and out the other. And before I know it, I get a prescription for Repatha for $505 a month that I can't afford anyway. And they keep pushing it at me now. I called in and said I want to decline the prescription. It's, I don't know, it reminds me of Kafka. Drives you crazy. Anyway, sometimes don't go crazy. Just keep, declining what you don't want and take what you do want.
And I think what Kevin is
that's a problem.
Also saying, Marilyn, yeah, exactly. And that's what I think Kevin is saying is you have to know your body. You have to become the best partner in care. And so what he looks at, maybe Kevin can share exactly what he looks at on his blood work when it comes to cholesterol that helps him to make the determination. And maybe I can start with my dad. My dad did not end up with a statin, even though he did for a month. But then we ended up sending him to a dietitian who has her doctorate from Stanford. And she did advanced testing through Boston Heart Diagnostics. And they found that he did not have a liver production problem. He had a cholesterol reabsorption problem. And she said a statin is not going to, it's going to mask the problem. The real issue is I've said this before, he needed to poop more. So what she suggested is to boost the psyllium husk and the plant sterols. And in fact, that method has been affirmed by the Mayo Clinic, because there's an organization that was started by a cardiologist called Step One Foods, and they did a trial with the Mayo Clinic and found that psyllium husk and plant sterols were powerful, supplements to help reduce the unwanted small cholesterol particles in the blood. So I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah, because you can get reabsorption. You can stop that and send it on its way by binding it to things like psyllium in the gut. The trick is you have to understand what's going on, and you have to know the mechanism of what's going on.
Yeah.
And this is pretty important. And so always ask questions, do the research, look up papers that you can, if you can, make that decision. Why statins? People are still getting plenty of heart attacks since 1900, and statins are a $19 billion business. So why haven't heart attacks gone away? I'm very suspicious of statins. I'm also suspicious of beta blockers, because that is an $8 billion industry and climbing fast. And when you follow the numbers, it makes you humans have been surviving for several billion years. What the hell's going on in this industry? And I'm extremely suspicious that money is driving the process.
And I love that just while Kevin's telling you is you need to have the conversation. Don't just take things carte blanche. Like, ask questions, understand, take time to do the research, to understand the mechanisms of action by which these medications work. Talk about the complications, the side effects with your doctor, understand your blood work. I had a great conversation, Kevin, with Dr. Lily Johnston, and we talked about how bad Dr. Google is. So when you just Dr. Google and you search and everything's kind of bought and paid for and you're not really getting the best results. But with ChatGPT, or I'm now using more Claude, is if you ask the right question, it'll provide you with the right answer, and you can upload your blood work in there and have the conversation with ChatGPT about what each means, and then it'll give you some critical questions to talk to your doctor about, or to ask your doctor, so that you can make a more informed decision. It's how you use those resources, right? But it's such a great resource to help you with that research. You can even ask it directly, what's the mechanism of action by which this particular statin or medication works, and here's my blood work. Do they align? Or is there another medication that more aligns that I should have the conversation with my doctor? It doesn't mean it's the end all be all, but all we're saying is that it helps you to have that productive conversation with your doctor and not just be, a passenger in the back seat of the car. You got to ride shotgun.
And then to find a doctor who'll actually want to talk to you. I basically get told that, no, you don't need to know that. No time. There you go.
Yeah, in some areas, you do have that situation. I find that a lot in Europe. I find that a lot in Canada. I find that a lot on the eastern side of Australia. I definitely find that all the times in the Philippines. It's really interesting. But I think we're moving, with the, expanded resources that we have as patients, as we move into this world where we have more data at our fingertips. I think that the healthcare teams are going to be forced to have grander conversations with the patients, because I don't think the patients are going to settle for a passive approach to their care. They're going to become better partners and more proactive in their care.
I think
Thanks, Kim. I use ChatGPT all the time. I was on there last night till about 2 a.m.
Oh my goodness.
I think there is.
Well, I'm trying to sort this out, so.
I think that ChatGPT is a bit of a threat. There's a great essay by Neil Postman called It's about amusing ourselves to death, but it's about the impact of technology on epistemology. And epistemology is the study of the nature of knowledge. So as technologies change, our knowledge or understanding of knowledge changes. And so here we get these snippets of a particular piece of biochemistry that gives us this answer, but that doesn't mean we have knowledge. We now have information. Knowledge comes from fully understanding the context of the statement. Therefore, if you want to truly understand, say, the effect of a statin via HMG CoA reductase, you should just go and read a chapter of a biochemistry book, and it will tell you about the different lipids and what they're like and how they act and what cholesterol does to membranes, makes them more fluid, whatever, and you'll get some actual knowledge, not a snippet of information. But the trouble is that becomes a kind of easy way out, a kind of game. And then we start amusing ourselves to death with ChatGPT, and we don't think about the underlying complexities of the situation, which are worthy of an hour or two of study. And that is my objection to AI. It's yet another toy, but it needs to be. It can be very, very useful. I use it to look up if I have odd symptoms with my cabbage stuff. I look it up, and it saves me a bit of time. But that doesn't mean I leave it at that. I have to. Think. Sorry. Someone was speaking.
I think it was background noise.
I have a question that I think is relevant to everything that's being shared right now, and I don't have a sense that there may be an answer. But my question is there any direct way, parenthetically, that insurance will pay for, to actually understand what the blockage in my artery or your arteries or anybody's, what our P.A.D blockage is sort of geologically constructed of, and because it seems like that would partially address the question of what could help target it if we knew that. But I don't have any understanding at all that kind of information is available. And the only thing I can imagine is going in with like an angioplasty and taking out a core sample, a sample of the material and testing it. But so I have been wondering about this a lot. And I'm just wondering if there is anything that, or if that's just like they don't bother because they've got the Repatha and statins, and kind of the whole thing is already overlaid with too much of a business model.
No, they do. There are a lot of different studies that are out there on what makes up the plaque inside so many people's arteries, and that's how they discovered that there are some microplastics that they have found in the carotids, and which has been concerning. But the one thing when it comes to each individual, I always tell people to get a CT angiogram. There are two types of, some doctors consider clot plaque and others don't. So I was always told there's 4 types of plaque. There's the, thrombus, there's the fibrin materia, there's the atheroma, and there's the hard atherosclerosis. But some just say clot is just has nothing to do with P.A.D, and it just mimics the symptoms if it gets caught in the legs. And that's where Coach Prime, or Deion Sanders, the former NFL player who now coaches college football, he famously has had amputations. They still refrain from calling it P.A.D, but I will call it P.A.D. Not to diagnose him, but honestly, it just is what it is. Over 50, right? Probably has a combination. Everyone at some point in their lives has some sort of plaque in their arteries somewhere, even in the legs. And so even though the clot may be the catalyst or the straw that broke the camel's back, there's still that. So I would still call it P.A.D. Now, that being said, a CT angiogram can tell you whether it is rock hard calcium or something softer. You can see And Kevin, it would be great if you can explain this more, clinically. But the reason that you can actually see a calcium trail in the arteries, it's the same reason why when you break a bone, they do an x-ray and the bone shows up in the x-ray because of the calcium. And so that's the way it was explained to me, why you can then see the calcium in the arteries. And if you see a calcium trail, I've been in cases where literally it's just boulder after boulder after boulder after boulder. They don't even need any contrast fluid to light up the artery. I mean, you can see where the artery, in a sense, should be because of the calcium trail. Now, if they can't see any sort of calcium trail, it's worth asking, okay, what is the soft plaque that is in my artery? Or, it could still be thrombosis. So it still could be like Michelin tire rubber. But if it's clot, where's the clot coming from? We just had a patient that they put on hospice, and I'm so sad about. It makes me want to cry, because I had 2 doctors said there's hope, and the family still decided, bless their heart, that they're going to put her on hospice. I think she's just tired though, and everyone has a choice. So at least they knew there were options. But she had AFib. And when you have AFib, doctors tell me they see a lot of clots that can be thrown, and they see it a lot going down the legs. And so in those situations, we've had it where we had a patient that was here in the Bay Area that they wanted to do an axillary bifemoral bypass from the shoulder to the groin and then split off and just bypass everything as frontline treatment. They looked at the CT angiogram. They just saw it was blocked. There was no calcium trail. And so I said to the doctor, well, what if you tried a little clot busting drug, catheter delivery, if you feel it's safe? They call it a TPA. Insert that in, see if you can soften that plaque, and go in with a wire and a balloon and a thrombectomy device to suck it out. And the doctor said, no, I don't really do that. But you know what? Honestly, every person has a right to a second opinion. I know someone who does that. Let's let him assess the situation. Lo and behold, but with the same patient within, 4 years, it happened twice at 2 different hospitals. Whole other situation why she ended up at 2 different hospitals at different times. Insurance changes, things like that. But again, they wanted to do that as frontline treatment. And all you needed was a little TPA, a little clot busting drug, and a device to suck the clot out. So it's why we always tell patients to stop and ask exactly what you did. What do you think this blockage is made of? Is it soft plaque or is it rock hard calcium? And is there any channel by which even a wire might be able to slip through? Because if a wire can slip through, they can slip something over the wire, like a balloon, and create just enough of a channel to eke some blood flow through. Just my opinion. Is that helpful, Carl? I don't know if I answered the question. Maybe Kevin wants to weigh in.
I think it's a complex question. I don't think there's exactly a simple answer, but that's a lot of information that goes along with me getting a better handle on it. So yeah, thank you.
There is a lot of research on mechanisms of atherosclerosis and arteriosclerosis. Some are inflammatory, so stuff accumulates in the intima, et cetera, and you can find those publications on PubMed if you want to really understand the mechanism of the different reasons that the arteries get blocked. But that's a big subject, and there's a lot of biology behind it. I suspect that these different kinds of blockages could be sorted out through blood markers. I mean, if there's an inflammatory component, you should be able to pick that up. The thing is, there's so many people with this problem, and the physicians are so busy, And it takes about 10 years for information to go from a research desk to reach the physicians. It's a long journey between, the research and actually treating, because you have to go through all the hoops of the FDA, et cetera. So this is a big question. I agree with that. This is why plumbers get paid so well, isn't it? Because I had plumbers tell me yesterday, and yeah, it was quite a bill to fix my tap.
Mm,
Yeah.
yes.
So try PubMed if you want to really understand it. I mean, many years ago, I was studying routine, general pathology and in some detail, and it was pretty interesting. I'm sure it's progressed beyond that with the kinds of cell types, et cetera, that get into the wall and which part of the wall, et cetera, et cetera. But you can get around that with collaterals, and this is not everywhere. I mean, I wish I had more collaterals in my neck for protecting my carotid, but the thing was, my right heart, the coronary arteries to my right heart were 100% blocked, and you couldn't even get a stent in there. And I, for years, I've been, doing Ironman training purely on collaterals in my right heart. So there's no doubt.
Wow.
I mean, I got to see them in the cath lab. It was like a web of collaterals in my right heart, and my right heart was doing fine. The left heart was having a harder time. So once again, always start with walking, training, collaterals if you can possibly do it.
Yeah.
I know it
Yeah.
does get harder, as for most people though, as you age, you kind of just hope to have to do less, to not have to go to the gym every day, but to be able to wake up leisurely, have your coffee, sit and watch TV, go take a leisurely walk versus
You
pushing
get older,
it.
you get older, you have to go to the gym 3 times a day. Come on. It's just a fact.
But I love your book.
You're
If
fighting
anyone has a
against
chance, How to
fighting
Train for
entropy.
Aging,
The ultimate endurance sport.
the ultimate endurance sport. I mean, you want to live longer, you gotta push it a little bit, right?
You really do, and it has to be widespread. It has to be many aspects of training. I list all the different kinds of training in that book, but then you've got to take each one on. You've got to work on balance. You've got to work on your diet. It's this constant battle against entropy. And in our case, we have P.A.D. and things like it. Well, now I have the Zipper Club to join. This is pretty interesting, actually, because once again, the physician has to heal himself. And the first thing I say when you have a serious setback is you've got to let go of the past and move on with what you have. So what I did was I was signed up to do the White Lake half Ironman in about a month, or in May. And what I did was I contacted the race people and had them roll my registration over to next year, which tells you what my intention is. I came across a 70-year-old guy who'd had bypass surgery, who was back doing Ironman. So I will get back to it if I possibly can. Because it's the best treatment for PAD. It's the best treatment for the issues I have, which is genetic hypertriglyceridemia. But it comes down to knowing what you have, knowing the mechanism. And once you understand what the problem is, and you have to be able to, it's critical to define the problem correctly. If you know what the problem is and you define it correctly, then you have a chance of fixing the problem. If you define it incorrectly, he's got a dicky heart, therefore he must have a cholesterol problem, therefore we'll send him Repatha for $505 a month. That is not understanding the problem. That is very poor problem approaches. And so you have, as the patient, you have to take charge of that. It's really important. So you really need to carefully define your problem.
Yeah, I
Kevin,
totally agree. Don't just put a Band-Aid on it. Yeah, Marilyn?
Kevin, did you find out that yours is a triglyceride problem just because your triglycerides were high, or how did you discover that?
Well, this week's newsletter, I don't know if you get my newsletter, but I describe the entire history of what happened to me up to the day of the heart attack. About 48 years ago in Geneva, Switzerland, I was working there in pathology, And I took, because of one of the staff left, I took responsibility for a human study, even though I'm a veterinarian. There was a physician involved in Geneva. And I took responsibility for this platelet study where we had to study for the company. It was a contract. The effects on platelet function of aspirin and aspirin lysate. Aspirin lysate bypasses a lot of the stomach problems in smokers and non-smokers. So we had a study group of smokers and non-smokers. We gave some of them aspirin lysate and some aspirin itself. And we were studying platelet function. One of the measures of platelet function is bleeding time, where you just make a hole in the ear and see how long it takes to bleed. It's very sophisticated science. And the other one is an aggregometer, which tells you the rate of aggregation of the platelets and whether you're blocking the second phase of platelet aggregation, which is through largely the arachidonic acid pathway, though for Plavix it's different. So I took on the responsibility for that. And of course, I had to put my blood on the line. So in order to calibrate the aggregometer, they needed blood. So I held up my arm and gave them blood. And 10 minutes later, the tech came in and wanted to know what I'd eaten for lunch. This is back in 1977. Anyway, I looked at my plasma, which is normally a clear straw-colored fluid. And mine was like clotted cream, literally thick clotted cream. And so we did some further analysis and found I had a severe genetic hypertriglyceridemia associated with a very low HDL. This was actually a death sentence. I knew that I would probably die in my 40s of atherosclerosis or pancreatic problems. And so that is how I found it out. And I then fought it from there on. The only treatment in those days was to eat lots of fatty fish. So I ate lots of fatty fish, which I like, and it brought my triglycerides down to about 500, 600 milligram per deciliter. When I came over to America, I went to see a physician and got to my routine study, and they agreed my triglycerides are up. So they suggested I take a, guess what?
A statin.
Correct. A statin, which has nothing to do with triglyceride biosynthesis. And so it was like, okay, in order to shut up the cardiologist, I tried a statin. It didn't do anything to my blood lipid levels. And then I saw the lesions of a statin in a mouse by chance. The mouse had been treated with a statin and saw the rhabdomyolysis. So I fired both the statin and the cardiologist as ignorant, and I continued with my work. And then I got into Ironman, and the Ironman training completely 100% corrected my blood lipid problem, which was triglycerides measured, and LDL also tends to be high because they're related. And for next 25 years doing Ironman training, I controlled my blood lipid problem. I'd follow it from time to time, but it would come in pretty close to normal unless I had to back off on training due to some problem. Of course, when I hit my 80s, I'm forced to back off somewhat because of my age. And thus began the saga that led to my heart attack about 6 weeks ago.
That's an amazing, amazing story. You were very fortunate to have found it when you did. Just really, really rather incidental finding.
It was
during your
very
studies.
yeah, it was quite a surprise. I published that. I eventually published that study on the blood platelets. It was blood platelets are sort of magical. I mean, if you think you understand a blood platelet, just because you talk about, well, it doesn't stick to the walls or some vague idea you have. No, if you study the biology of blood platelets, it is truly you know how they're made? I mean, they're made in the weirdest way. Sitting in bone marrow and other places and other species, there are megakaryocytes, which are rather large cells sitting in the bone marrow, and they grow, and then their cytoplasm grows and grows and grows. And when it gets to a certain point, the megakaryocyte cytoplasm invaginates and breaks up into a three-dimensional crazy paving. This literally happens. So you get this three-dimensional crazy paving membranes in the megakaryocyte cytoplasm, and then all of a sudden, these things are divided up into little cubes, and suddenly they shed and spray out like seeds. They are made of the cytoplasm of a megakaryocyte, which will then proceed to produce another crop. That is hard to believe. Platelets have for instance, here's another thing. People say, well, you take an aspirin a day. Why take an aspirin a day? Well, the thing is, aspirin blocks the arachidonic pathway of all the platelets in your entire body. And the platelet half-life is about 10 days. So that means 1 day later, you only got 10% of platelets are going to be able to aggregate through the second phase and form a clot. And so why you have to take it every day, it makes no sense to me. You're not studying the dynamics. But, these are the kind of things that if you want to understand platelets and why they stick and what they do and how they stick and how they don't stick and how you can block the second phase of aggregation, which is when trouble starts, which is when, thrombus starts forming around, and clotting is itself highly complex. I mean, your body is in a constant state of balance. It's in a balance between bleeding out and setting solid all the time. I mean, the blood wants to clot and it will set solid, but it also wants to not clot and run all over the place. And somehow the body regulates this situation in your blood, and it's in a state of dynamic tension, like a healthy democracy. But let's not talk about that anymore. And so, you need to understand that many things in the body are in a state of dynamic tension, and one measurement of a variable is not very helpful because things are changing, like a river is constantly flowing. So when we talk about platelets, then I would say if platelets are important for the biology of your situation, then go and read about what platelets do. Where do they come from? Where do they go? What happens to them? This kind of thing. And it's not magic. It's a fascinating story, actually.
Thank you, Kevin.
That's the lecture for today.
Can I offer you another opportunity for a lecture? I have been a little silent just because, I'm on my treadmill and, I moved up to 4 miles an hour. And as I'm still trying to handle the Leg Saver hotline and questions that are coming in via text, because I always try to handle those in real time and multitask, I was not focused on my walking, and suddenly my knee started really bothering me. And I'm about 45 minutes in, and I was ready to just give up. And I thought, wait, hold on. I need to get back in alignment and do what Kevin always tells you to do and what's on his website. Make sure you go to his YouTube channel, youtube.com/the@fit-old-dog. And he has an entire video on how to walk effectively. And as soon as Kevin, I started putting your techniques back into practice, voila, my knee pain is gone. I'm not kidding. It's just amazing. And it was really hurting. I was so ready to give up. I was cringing. I was grinding my teeth because the knee hurt so bad. But I put myself back in alignment. I spread my toes because in that moment where I realized my knee was hurting, I took stock of like, okay, what is my body doing right now? I was a little hunched over. My toes were just like this. And my arms weren't swinging. So now that I've gotten back into the right techniques, I have no pain in my knee at all.
Yeah, no, that's the way it is. It's really true. I mean, it's the same with trigger point pain. I mean, I started getting trigger point pain in my left shoulder. I found the trigger point was really painful, but it's because I was starting to use the right side of my body more than my left. So I started picking things up with my left arm and using my left arm more. I think I was just, I don't know, because I was so tired and weak. My right arm is the strong arm. So as soon as I started using my left arm, it went away. Some of these pains can be extremely intense, and they are often muscle pain. That knee pain, there's a fair chance that was probably a tight hamstring or a tight quad. but it will produce an intense knee pain. And so that's good. So yeah, it's the trick is to move naturally and in a healthy way.
Yeah. I'm actually pretty shocked right now because I can't believe I've had it where I've told you that I get some hip pain from being on the treadmill and doing I try to get an hour in every day. And but I've never had the knee pain before. That was wretched.
No,
I
it
don't know
really-
where that
it
came
really
from.
hurt.
Yeah.
No, that's true. So once again, with pain, you have to find the source, which is often remote from the site of pain. That's really important to understand. That pain is it's an indicator of an action needs to be taken. It is not an indication of where the damage occurs. That's quite important to remember. I mean, sometimes it's close to where the damage occurs, such as in a cut or something like that. But quite often with, with musculoskeletal pain, the pain can be very remote from the source. And so, yeah, it's an interesting area of study, like everything. You got to understand, as a kid, I was weird. Other kids would be off, dancing or something, and I'd be reading a textbook for fun, not understanding those
It was
people.
worth it. We
And
love all your knowledge.
Yeah, it pays off later, but early in your life, it's hard to get a girlfriend if you're reading a book.
It's funny. I had a business partner. He was like co-host of a show that I did for Business News. And he said that when he was younger, his dad told him that he needed to put his nose, to the news, like keep his nose in the books and literally become the biggest nerd possible, because when he's in his 20s, if he becomes the ultimate expert because he was heads down, didn't do anything else but study, he would get the ultimate girl when he was in his 20s and was rich. I thought that was really funny.
More like your 40s.
Yeah.
In your
20s.
I'm 50 and still single, but I'm not rich either. So,
Well, you're doing something silly. I don't know what you're doing. But there's no accounting for that process. Think about it. I was 80 and Sue walked into my life, and she walked me through the hospital, through my surgery. So we've been together like 3 years, and she, I think, pretty well saved my life in the hospital because I was being put on weight and all this kind of stuff. And she was great. I mean, she even took out my PICC line at home when we got home. So here I've got a girlfriend who's an expert in cardiovascular disease and intensive care. So it's almost like it was a gift from nature, that I got
Aw.
exactly the girlfriend needed to save my life. And she kind of really did. So that's a good thing, a really good thing.
Yeah,
but
I got a
it's
chef.
interesting. What'd you say, Marina?
I said I got a chef. That's
You
also
did.
handy. So Kim, I just wanted to say you'd mentioned angiogram. I have one scheduled for tomorrow. Yeah,
No.
yeah,
With Dr. Adam.
yeah, yeah. So they did say to
So
prepare to
cute.
spend a night in the hospital, which surprised me, but
Well, I'm wondering, remember we talked about checking your abdomen. Do not,
yes,
I
he's
wonder if
doing that.
that's, did
He's
he
doing that.
agree?
Yeah,
that-
yeah, it's an abdomen angiogram. And he's
So
gonna
there-
do everything, do the right leg.
So he agrees that he thinks there's something higher up that they completely missed all this time.
He didn't say that, but he can't say anything until he goes in there and looks.
Oh, and see, we had her, Kevin, as you know, with the story, she had a bunch of procedures. That sounds like my dad's phone. He also has the barking. But had all these angiograms and they were in the groin down. But when and Marina, correct me and stop me if I'm divulging too much. But we had a meeting with our RVT. We have a new thing we call P.A.D test breakdown. It's a new show, and we have a world-renowned RVT that comes on, and she'll look at people's scans. and she'll listen to their story as she would with any patient. And she looked at Marina's and was like, have you ever had your abdomen looked at? And Marina had never had her abdomen looked at all. And her stents in her thighs kept blocking and reblocking and reblocking and reblocking, and no one could figure out why, like really quickly blocking. And she says to Marina, how many years later after this whole process had begun with you, you need to have your abdomen checked.
Yep.
They never checked her aorta.
But it's tomorrow.
Tomorrow, yeah.
Yeah.
But why would I have to stay a night in the hospital? That's what's
Because if they're addressing the aorta and the iliacs, and they suspect there might be grander blockages, it's always safer.
okay.
It also, if you are the last one in the day,
Okay.
you may not have as many hours, and they just like to, just as a precaution.
Right.
It's also when you have, if they're entering and they're planning to enter into your groin and access the artery through your groin, you
Yeah.
need the hours laying flat on your back,
Yes.
to make sure that you don't develop a hematoma and such in there. So I always think it's the best thing to do when you're are you late in the day?
I don't know yet. I only find out this afternoon.
Okay. And so I think they tell people just in case, but
Yeah.
also while you're there and after they do that, I would again, hey, since I'm here, you fix my legs, I'm going to be walking faster. Can my heart handle that? Do we know? Can you do a PET scan while I'm here to make sure the moment I leave this hospital, I'm not going to drop dead because I'm walking faster and my heart can't keep up?
Okay.
If you have P.A.D., you have C.A.D.
I wonder if there's a possibility of an aortic aneurysm that's shedding junk down into the distal legs.
See,
Because
that could be too.
my aneurysm was full of clotted blood and God knows what. And
Yeah.
then I had a stent put in 2010, and it has been functioning ever since, like 15, 16 years. I've had that stent, but the junk between the stent and the wall, if that kind of stuff is shedding off, and the stent surgery is no big deal. I just wonder if that's at the back of it. So we'll be interested for you to report back, if you don't mind. Are you still off the statins, or have you gone back?
No, I've been given Repatha, so I was given a free sample, so I took that, and now it's just been approved through my insurance, so I'm going to try that.
Okay.
But it's not $500 a month for me. It's much, much less.
Yeah, no, I could have got financial aid for it, but I kept telling them I didn't want it in the first place. But
Right.
yeah, well, don't get me started on that. I'm excited because if they can find the source of the problem,
Yep.
they can fix it.
I hope so.
Because Marina is so wonderful. Kevin, I don't know if you heard that when I was there, she really took care of me and my dad. She was Mama Marina. I loved it. I ended up, because I was gonna go visit you, but then I ended up the hotel we were at. They're getting ready for this big renovation. We chose the hotel because it was a Hilton property and we had points, and it was honestly 4 minutes from where my dad was having his genicular arterial embolization for his knees, the arterial embolization for arthritis in the knees, and he was having both of them done at a Center of Excellence, which happens to be in Cary, North Carolina, of all places. And so we flew him across the country so he could be with the best of the best doctors for it. But we stayed at this hotel, and it had some mold, and I am highly allergic to mold, to the point where I have to be very careful with coffee and tea that I drink. And even yesterday, my dad had a glass with a lemon in it, and I just had been feeling kind of horrible. I spent a lot of time in the kitchen, and the spores had to have been, kind of in the air from the mold. And of course, when I caught it, I was like, oh, that's why I'm not feeling good. Tossed it out, and suddenly my brain fog and everything started clearing. Needless to say, my throat shut down. Like, it I could not sleep all night long because I was, kind of gasping for air. It just completely closed. And so I thought I had gone to the dentist that week. I thought I had strep throat. And so I thought, oh God, if I'm going to go visit Kevin and I have strep throat, yeah, that's going to be a great combination if after heart surgery. So that's why I couldn't visit you. But Marina was like picking up my dad from his procedure, taking him back to the hotel. She had a nice welcoming package of fresh fruit and snacks, even for the dogs upon arrival that they put in our room. We had lunch multiple days. She helped me duke it out with some guy that was attacking me verbally for having service dogs in a restaurant that are actually medical alert dogs. ADA certified.
Why do people worry about dogs in restaurants when most diseases are caught from people, not from dogs?
I know.
Makes no sense. There are very few, in fact, almost no diseases you can catch from a dog wandering around on the floor. If you drank the dog's urine and leptospirosis, okay. It's very strange about that. I don't understand the logic. They shouldn't allow humans in restaurants. And then you wouldn't get any diseases at all.
Seriously, Carl, right? Carl's even laughing at that one. It's so true. It blows my mind. I mean, I understand if there's, fur and fur can float in the air and get in food and stuff, and people are freaked out about that. But I don't know about you. I've had hair from the chefs and the waitresses and stuff, and maybe someone that sat at the table before that had hair shedding, and it's ended up being left on the table. And the dogs are probably, as you said, cleaner than us. Anyway, but that was kind of funny because Marina got to see my real fight side. I don't worry as much about me being discriminated against. It's just if they're discriminated against me, they're discriminated against other people, and they need to know that that's not okay. And I certainly told him, didn't I, Marina?
Yeah, you did great. You were, very
I
professional.
told the whole restaurant.
Yeah, no, it needed to be done. You were the great person to do it. This man needed to be taught a lesson, or learn how to treat people.
Yeah, it's just that people hold other people accountable for their happiness, and they have to control other people. And if they don't agree with something, that's the way it needs to be, that everyone needs to act in a way that they agree with. And that's not what this world is all about. Everyone has a right to, as long as I'm not harming you.
Right.
Right? If someone is inflicting harm upon someone else, that's a whole other story, right? Then you have a right to say something, and you should say something. But let people just be, as long as it's not hurting you. Let people believe what they're going to believe. You don't know until you walk in their shoes what the experience is. And I was trying to educate him very kindly that my dog has tangibly saved my life, literally saved my life.
Well, and even that afternoon, Kim, remember when we went to visit that center and your dog was, indicating to you something was up, right? Yep. Remember you said it was all the dust, maybe the asthma?
And thank goodness I wasn't even, and everyone noticed that he was locked in on me.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until I'm such a people pleaser at my expense, still a people pleaser. And it took Marina, Mama Marina, to say, I think it's time to go. I'm going to go down, like leading by example. And thank goodness she did, because I was on the verge of an asthma attack. So she actually got to witness what the dog does if I choose to listen to him.
Right.
That's a whole other story. But yeah, that was really annoying. But I was so glad that you were there. And we appreciate you. But Kevin, I've asked this Center of Excellence. They're opening their brand new facility. And so I've told them that I can't afford too many books, but I said I could buy 10 books and see if you would come for a book signing and educational opportunity for them. And so
I can buy the books at author price, much cheaper, and just bring them with me.
Well, maybe you could buy them and I can just reimburse you.
Or I could cover the cost and be a gentleman. It's all
You do
marketing.
so much, but I
Um,
would be honored to do it. And I think that so many people, we just need to get the books out there to so many people. And at that event that they're going to have, I know they're going to have, when they open, they're going to have a bunch of referring doctors and such.
Well,
So-
I just published on Amazon, I think, the P.A.D. training
Mm.
plan as an audiobook. So the main components are in there.
Yeah.
And so that's, yeah, the audiobook. I mean, I can't continue my audiobooks until my throat clears up, which takes a little while. But yeah, no, I'm happy to do that. I'm happy. I need a few weeks to recover. And
Oh,
then
of course.
that will be good.
Yeah. So, well, thank you so much, Kevin, for joining us. It's so good to have you back. And there's so many lessons, and I'm, in your experience, and I appreciate you sharing them here. Always remember, for everyone, this is just for educational, informational purposes. And I know our producer Josh is going to have a disclaimer, somewhere on this. But I think these discussions are really important to have. It's not to dictate your medical care. We're not offering medical advice. We're not challenging the doctors at all. What we're saying to all of you is this is really good food for thought. You need to be the best partner in your care. You need to advocate for yourselves. You need to do the research. You can call our Leg Saver hotline at 833-PAD-LEGS, and we can help you with that research. We can guide you in that research. We can help you come up with a critical set of questions to ask your doctor about everything that we talked about today. And I'm sure Kevin is wonderful at interacting with people who engage with him through inspirationalselfhelpbooks.com. I know it's a really long website URL, but it's worth signing up for his newsletter because he is interactive, and every single word that he shares in his newsletter, it's always tangible and actionable. So make sure you do sign up, and he's always happy to help you turn the information he provides into critical questions to discuss with your care team. But thanks everyone for joining us. Make sure, like the video.
There's one more point that's important to
Yes.
remember.
Sure.
And I'm not dead. I survived my heart attack and got my
You did.
cabbage, and I'm a very lucky man. So I'm glad to be here.
Well,
We're
we are
lucky
glad
that
you're here. And as you said, it was 50 years in coming, but with all of your effort, all of your work that you have put in, you were able to sustain so much longer than so many more people would have if they hadn't put in the effort as you did. And people might say, well, you still had a heart attack. Well, everyone's destined to die at some point. Everyone's going to have some sort of heart attack at some point. But will you survive the heart attack? And he was able to survive the heart attack because of the time and the effort that he put in. And he was the best partner in his care along the way. So it's a really good lesson, Kevin. And I'm so glad that you brought up that point as we close out today. And hopefully everyone will join us next week for more discussions and more Collateral Nation. And we appreciate everyone for being here. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Kim.